Good evening. On behalf of the commissioners and staff, I would like to welcome you to the May 16th, 2023 meeting of the City of Roseville Transportation Commission. Everyone, please put their cell phones or personal electronic devices on silent at this time. If you need or would like to follow along with the agenda, those of you here in the audience, there's packets there along next to Mr. Schofield. For those of you watching at home, all meeting documents are available online at the city's website for the Transportation Commission. If you plan to speak at tonight's meeting, complete a blue speaker card and return it to the staff table. Lainey, can we have the roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Mondal.
Present.
Commissioner Festerson.
Here.
Commissioner Groff.
Here.
Commissioner Huskins is absent, excused. Commissioner Pell.
Here.
Commissioner Probst.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
And Chair Radford.
I'm here. Looks like we are all here or accounted for. Commissioner Probst, would you please lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next up is our public comment. Public comment is a time for anyone who would like to address the commission on any transportation-related item that is not on tonight's agenda. Speakers shall restrict their comments to issues that are within the subject jurisdiction of the Transportation Commission and limit their comments to 3 minutes. The Brown Act, with certain exceptions, does not permit the Transportation Commission to discuss or take action on these items that are not listed on the agenda. Also, if you come up, please state your name for the record. Is there anyone that would like to speak on any agenda item that we do not have on the agenda tonight?
Chair Radford, we did receive an email from a resident that would like us to mention this.
I see that in front of me. Would you
I'll
please
have a
do the
copy.
honor of reading it?
Yes. I told this person I would read it, line for line.
Schofield.
So this is from Jennifer Higgins, a Roseville resident. Good evening, Transportation Commission. My name is Jennifer Higgins, and I live in West Roseville on Pleasant Grove, and am a regular rider of fixed route and dial-a-ride service. I'm unable to present at the meeting because I work in Lincoln on Tuesday as a caregiver, and I don't get off in time to get to the meeting. However, I wanted to share with you that I have been noticing an increase in ridership on the M route multiple times a day, so much so that I have had to ask Victor, the morning driver, to hold buses for me so I could make my connection to Sierra College, or Lincoln buses in Placer County Transit. The traffic in West Roseville is increasing exponentially, and when the roads are widened, that will not solve the problem as more homes will be built. I would like you to seriously consider adding 2 fixed route buses an hour to the M route so that the M can keep up with the demand, even if it is done at commute times between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. and then 3 and 7 p.m. to ease the busyness of the day. When drivers have to take the time to load and unload wheelchairs and walkers, it slows them down on the route, and they need to do that, but they need to do it properly without having to worry about getting somebody to connect with buses at the Galleria. Also, maybe Roseville Transit and Placer County Transit need to think about delaying their connection time so that connection time, like having Roseville leave at 30 past the hour and Placer County leave at 35 past the hour, so that there is a little bit more leeway in connection times. Also, with all of the building going on in West Park, I would really like to see a bus line considered for Blue Oaks and Fittiment. There is so much development out there now that there is with all of those shopping centers on Blue Oaks. There is so much that is being missed and not served that Dial-A-Ride has a hard time handling it. Lastly, as I travel daily on public transit, I have noticed that all of the transfer points have coverings at their bus stops, but the one in town that does not is Foothills and Pleasant Grove. There's a bus stop covering on the outbound side, but with all of the heavy rain that we had this winter and the approaching summer heat, it would be really nice if the city would consider putting a bus stop covering at the inbound side of Foothills and Pleasant Grove, because the stop is being used more frequently and is difficult to stand there with no covering when it is 100 degrees outside. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Schofield. And just to clarify, Mr. Christensen, I don't believe we are able to really make any comments on that, other than I know that staff will be addressing these issues on a future Transportation Commission. I know those typically come up, so I want to thank Jennifer Higgins for her comments, and look forward to maybe seeing that on a future agenda item. With that said, does anybody else have anything to bring up here that was not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5.1. That is the approval of the February 21st meeting. It is in your packets, Commissioners, and if you've had a time to go through it, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Looks like the ayes have it. Okay, the next agenda item, requests and presentations. Item 6.1, Roseville Active Transportation and Comprehensive Operational Analysis Update. Staff, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Chair. You will be hearing quite a bit from me this evening, so depending on your perspective, I'm hoping that's a good thing. This evening, we are providing an overview and an update on the Active Transportation Plan and the Comprehensive Operational Analysis. Over the next 12 to 18 months, staff will be leading a comprehensive effort to develop an Active Transportation Plan and, concurrent to that, a Roseville Transit Comprehensive Operational Analysis. This effort will begin with the release of an RFP this month to hire 2 separate consultants to develop both plans, as well as utilizing Roseville's on-call outreach team to work with us on a thorough and comprehensive outreach effort. Before I get into the details, I'll provide a little background on both of the plans. So what is active transportation? In the simplest terms, active transportation is a means of getting around that is powered by human energy, primarily walking and bicycling. Sometimes it's referred to as non-motorized transportation. An active transportation plan, or ATP as we're calling it, is a long-term strategic plan to improve walking and cycling and other modes of active transportation within a community. Roseville's ATP will provide a vision and action plan for the city to improve safe and convenient non-motorized travel for all ages and abilities. It will identify a well-connected and safe active transportation network to important Roseville destinations similar to what streets and roads do for motorized vehicles. The ATP will replace the 2012 City of Roseville's Bikeway Master Plan and the 2011 Pedestrian Master Plan. We will be combining both plans into one active transportation plan. So what are the goals of this plan? One goal for this plan is to provide connectivity to existing bike lanes and trails, which means we will be looking to close the current gaps in our system. Another goal is to produce a plan that will aid in receiving grant funding by identifying projects that need to be completed or projects that would rate high for competitive grants. A third goal, which is likely the most important goal of all, is to increase the number of people who walk or bicycle in Roseville to work, school, errands, or simply for recreational purposes. A main focus of the ATP is to understand existing conditions and needs, especially where gaps in the network currently exist, and to identify any locations with safety concerns. We will look at low-income communities and schools in need of active transportation improvements that can improve connectivity and accessibility through gap closure projects. We'll review existing sidewalk data for completeness and conduct additional inventory of sidewalks and connections to Class 1 trails. Additionally, we will look at existing bicycle facilities, including parking and wayfinding, for completeness and access to key activity areas. As part of the ATP effort, staff will work with other internal divisions to identify injury corridors and hotspot locations. The staff and consultant will work together to prioritize the pedestrian and bicycle projects for future development and coordinate funding opportunities for these improvements. There are a number of reasons why we are doing this plan. An obvious reason is that active transportation can improve your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. In addition to the individual health benefits of using trails and sidewalks to get around, other reasons for a strong ATP include reducing traffic congestion in Roseville neighborhoods and improving air quality by driving less and biking and walking more. Choosing active transportation can also have a positive effect on your bank account by reducing the cost of car maintenance, fuel, insurance, and health care. Lastly, the benefits of a robust active transportation network can improve a community by helping to foster a cleaner environment, greater economic resilience, and an overall better quality of life. As I mentioned, we'll be using a consultant to develop this plan. Working closely with staff, one of the first things the consultant will do is gather the data and get a better understanding of the existing conditions and needs. The consultant will develop a draft ATP for public review. This will include regional and statewide goals for safety, sustainability, mobility, accessibility, and equity. The consultant will identify and prioritize pedestrian projects for future implementation. The result is expected to be an active, reader-friendly, graphically rich ATP draft for public review and comment. This will include update presentations to the Commission for opportunities to provide comments. With the ATP product, an implementation strategy will be developed. This strategy will develop the steps needed to implement and plan and the reporting process that will be used to keep the community informed of the plan's progress. The last thing we want to do is develop this plan, go through all the work, produce it, and then have it sit on our shelves. So we don't want to do that. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of work that comes along with the ATP update, including a significant outreach effort, which I'll discuss in a few minutes. However, at this time, I'd like to switch over to the other significant project we'll be working on in the coming months, and that is concurrent to the ATP effort, we'll be working on the Roseville Transit Comprehensive Operational Analysis. Working closely with staff, a consultant will be hired to prepare a comprehensive operational analysis, or COA, of Roseville Transit. This COA will look at every aspect of Roseville Transit service. We will look at existing local, paratransit, dial-a-ride/Aero, and commuter services. In addition to examining our existing services, the COA will research the viability of additional bus service, such as service to Sacramento International Airport. So why are we doing a COA? I think the one word is timing. It's time that we take a look at our service and see how we can better serve our residents. Ridership reached a high for Roseville Transit of over 400,000 passengers in 2013 and 14. The last year before COVID, we served 270,000 riders. This last fiscal year, we were down to 144,000 riders. When the pandemic came through the region, Roseville Transit ridership plummeted like all agencies throughout the country as people worked from home and avoided transit for fear of contracting COVID. This chart here, we've used it past for our annual reports, but it does show our quarterly ridership going from left to right. The first two show the ridership prior to COVID, so we were in 70,000, 80,000 quarterly. And then the third bar going to the right, that's when COVID came in and we were down into the 20,000s. And you can see each quarter it's slowly recovering, but we've still got a long ways to go before we get back to where we were pre-COVID. So in addition to the ridership declines, many of Roseville's local routes were established years before the tremendous growth that we've experienced here in Roseville and also throughout South Placer County. So some of these routes are circuitous and they do not directly serve key destinations. So the COA represents a rare opportunity to take another look at our transit system. The COVID pandemic continues to be felt at Roseville Transit and throughout most of the nation. COVID changed transit ridership patterns for the foreseeable future. And the goal of the COA is to look at redesigning the current system and possibly incorporating modern technology to provide better services and features for our residents. So what are the key tasks that the consultant will be working on? Similar to the ATP, the COA will begin by gathering data to better understand our existing conditions and the needs of the transit system. The consultant will then analyze all aspects of Roseville Transit, including the list on this slide, such as our assets, our bus fleet, our fares, operations, and, like I'd mentioned, service to the airport. The end result will be 3 different service plans that will include recommendations to improve or modify the existing services, as well as for any additional services to improve equity and increased accessibility for Roseville residents. The 3 plans will consist of a cost-neutral service plan, which would result in no change in net operating costs compared to what we're currently providing. The second one is a moderate cost increase, which is approximately a 5 to 10% increase beyond what our current operating costs are. And then the third one is the unconstrained service plan, which is an increase in the budget of more than 10%. And this would presumably represent the optimum level of services and service methods to effectively meet the identified current and expected demanded needs of Roseville residents. For each service plan, the consultant will develop a financial plan to analyze the cost and revenue impacts of each, along with the proposed implementation plan. So we'll just talk about outreach here. As you can imagine, the ATP and the COA will require significant community outreach and communications to ensure residents have multiple opportunities to provide input into both projects. Because the projects are on similar timelines, it was determined that combining the outreach efforts would be the most effective way to engage the community. So in addition to hiring 2 technical consultants, Roseville will utilize its on-call communications contract to manage the outreach for both the COA and ATP. While there are definitely some economies of scale that benefit staff to doing this, staff feels this approach will also benefit Roseville residents. This approach will provide a one-stop shop approach for commenting on all aspects of both projects. Also, for each open house we have, it will cover both projects, thus saving residents from having to travel to 2 separate events. The technical consultants and the outreach team will be responsible for coordinating all aspects of the projects. So this slide is just our current dates for both the COA and ATP. We envision both plans to follow similar timelines, as I mentioned. These dates are subject to change. However, our expectation is that both plans will be completed by the end of 2024. As a side note, the information that comes from the COA will be inserted into Roseville Transit's updated short-range transit plan, which will be done by Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. The short-range transit plan basically provides our marching orders for the next 5 years, and it will rely heavily on what we approve in the COA. So this is a very exciting time for us, and I expect to come back to you with many more updates in the coming year and next year as well. We'll provide more specifics on ways to get involved at future updates. And that concludes my presentation at this time.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Schofield. Exciting stuff, like you said. So commissioners, at this time, does anybody have any clarifying questions for staff? And I'll start on my left. Our Youth Commissioner Mondal?
Not today.
Commissioner Probst? Yeah. Commissioner Goff?
Nothing, but thanks for the presentation. Very nice.
Commissioner Pell?
Surprisingly, yes. So one thing I was actually thinking of in relation to something that came up earlier was, I know you're probably not completely defining the scope at this point, and the consultants are doing that, but are the consultants going to analyze connections with regional transit systems?
Yes.
As part of this?
Yeah, that'll be we'll be looking at transfers,
Yeah.
and that's a key component of the COA.
Okay, great. That's enough for now.
Commissioner Festerson?
I have no questions, but I want to thank you for the presentation. It was really informative. Thank you.
And Commissioner Roberts?
I just had one quick question. I would assume that your transportation analysis includes modes of transportation as well, and like which ones are more popular versus
Yes.
less popular?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you for everything. It was very informative.
Okay.
Well, I guess when we're doing all the questions, mine is just clarifying. I know, and I know this goes without saying, we were working on a trails master plan for our alternative transportation. Obviously, we're still collaborating with our friends from the county because a lot of our trails, the connectivity relies on that connectivity, working with our county and the consultant. I'm hoping that they'll have some insight to how we can do that.
Yes. Yes, and we will be working closely with the county because they are also going to be doing an ATP in the future, near future. So I feel like that's a perfect time to collaborate, as you said.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thank you. And with that, does anybody from the public, would they like to come forward and comment on this item? Anyone? No? Okay, well, I'll close public comment. And if there any other questions, I think there is.
Yeah,
Of
just
course
one
there
last
is.
comment. I think this is
You,
super
Commissioner.
exciting. You know, it's thank you. It's super exciting. I think to do both the COA and the ATP update at the same time. You know, you're essentially looking at all non-private automobile modes of transportation in the city at once, which is a really cool opportunity. I think that something, you know, going back to the comment, my question earlier, I think that transportation is inherently like a regional issue. You know, people don't just live in Roseville and want to get into Roseville. They also want to get elsewhere too. And so those connections are going to be really important, both on the trails and like walking in town, as well as on in the transit system. So I think it's really great to try and focus on some of that too. Some of what I heard was to do with, you know, frequency of buses is, you know, do you increase frequency or do you increase the area that they cover? If you're driving a car and your garage only opens every hour, do you want it to open every half hour or do you be able to drive more places? So it's like an interesting conundrum. I'm looking forward to seeing what the community comes up with. And just really excited to see it. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll add one more thing about the, excuse me, the ATP. It sounds really interesting to me because I think a lot of people that live in Roseville really pride themselves on the fact that they live in a community that has lots of bike trails and different places you can walk and ride your bike. I personally live in the West Roseville area, west of Fitterment, and there's bike trails that go all over the place. And I guess the only piece of advice or hope that I would think that we should put into the ATP is that it seems that the bike trails sometimes maybe don't go places where you kind of want to go. Like, it's cool to make a loop on the bike trail, but in Roseville, I live near, like, the new area where Kitchen 747 is in Mojo's, right? And if I want to ride my bike there from my house, I have to ride my bike on the street. So maybe there's a way where you can integrate bike trails that drop people off in commercial spaces that still keep bikes off of the street.
Okay.
Just a thought.
No, good.
All right. Anyone else?
I'd love to ask a question.
Well, so I guess I will go back and allow the public comment. You need to fill out a green speaker card, if you would, sir, and state your name for the public.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Sutherland. I'm part of the Roseville Chamber of Commerce Leadership Program. So this is an opportunity, part of the class, to come and attend a council, and with graduation on Thursday and making sure I meet my requirement, here I am. So I don't know if this is a fair question for the team, but I figure, you know, if I'm going to be here and engaged, why not ask a question? From the ATP, you said that there were 3 goals, and the largest goal was to currently close the gap on those individuals who are not currently riders or walkers. And I was wondering if there was any data that you had to identify kind of what that gap would be from current state to that future state that you described.
Well, I think part of the data we would pull with the consultants, so that would come later. But when we talk about closing the gap, I think we're physically closing the gap. There's a lot of parts of the trails that go, but we need to connect them, maybe to go what you were saying, Chair Roberts, you know, to go to, you know, key destinations. So there's a couple different parts there, but we would be pulling that data and we could report it at a later date.
Perfect, Ed. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ryan. Awesome. So I guess going out of order a little bit, did anybody on my left have any further comments for staff on the item?
I do have one question. For the ATP program, I understand that in 2013 there was 400,000 people riding, and the last quarter there's 150,000. With this new initiative, how successful do you think it will be in the short term? Or will you pull that data from the consultants and that will be?
Yeah, we pull the data. I mean, honestly, having looked at a lot of different efforts, your initial, once you implement the changes, you don't see an explosion in ridership. You sometimes actually might lose some of your riders because you're now serving a different area. But it's the idea or the goal of that would be your long-term success. So you'd like to see a trend of the ridership going up. So I don't know if right off the bat we just have this huge influx of new riders, but you put it out there, you maybe look at the different frequencies instead of maybe we have a lot of coverage models out right now where you just cover a lot of ground but you don't have very frequent service. Maybe we change it to more frequent, but we're not covering as much. So you might lose some people there, but you're going to gain, at least the hope would be you would gain more riders long term. So, but ultimately, yeah, the data would probably, we would pull that later and we could share that with you as we get it.
Thank you.
And I had one other thing to add, not to burn up the mic. We've been on this item for a while, but the active transportation plan, I like that it's always bringing new data, what works. And I was one who was really against the roundabout when that one was going to be put into, it was Washington and Oak Street, right? And there was always accidents at that stop sign, and it was always backed up, beyond Main Street. And the roundabout really gave us some continuity, fluid. We just had to learn how to use the darn thing. And so driving down Washington on my way to the meeting this evening, I was looking at the one at All-American and then Lincoln Street, and that one's half finished. I saw we got like a half circle there, so they're probably going to be redirecting traffic, working on the other side. I commend you guys. That looks like that's moving on schedule, hopefully on budget. I know we were looking at having some more. There was one along Atlantic, and my neighborhood who was against it, the Folsom Road Neighborhood Association, they want it now, and I want it now because I've seen that they work, and make sure we still get to turn left and in and out of there. They wouldn't let me come home and come to supper if I didn't put that plug in there. So thank you for that, and make sure the consultant knows that that we want to make sure that we're able to still access Main Street here, or the Atlantic Street here in Vernon. So, thank you. With no further comments on this item, it brings us to our next. That is not an action item, so no vote is needed. So we're at 6.1. What is that? Active Transportation Comprehensive Oral Analysis. This is back to staff.
We're on the next item.
No, are we at a different item? 6.2, sorry. 6.2, it's the transit arrow. My
Yes,
mistake.
threw me off there.
I did, I'm sorry, that was, give myself a curve.
Well, hello again, Commissioners. I'm excited to be here this evening to promote Roseville's microtransit service, which we call Roseville Transit Arrow. This project has been in development for several years now and is finally up and running in the streets of Roseville. Before I get into the details, I thought it would be helpful to give some background on this subject. What is microtransit? Microtransit is a widely used term in the transit industry that describes on-demand shuttle service using smaller transit vehicles, or vans. Passengers request rides using a smartphone, computer, or by phone. The rides are then scheduled using the software provided by a microtransit company. Microtransit is similar to services offered by Uber and Lyft. There are many reasons why microtransit is growing in popularity and is becoming a common service offered by transit agencies throughout the world. A few reasons that make microtransit a smart option include that microtransit is flexible. It offers an on-demand option that can accommodate flexible work schedules that have become more prevalent since the COVID pandemic. Microtransit excels at improving customer experiences by existing transit riders by providing point-to-point service, as well as the opportunity to attract to track their arriving vehicle in real time. Microtransit can create a more welcoming and efficient experience for many riders, and microtransit can help fulfill community transportation needs for safety, affordability, accessibility, and flexibility. Staff began discussing microtransit implementation within the city of Roseville in 2020. Around this time, Roseville began working with other South Placer bus operators to make this a reality. Roseville Transit, Placer County Transit, Auburn Transit, and Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, or PCTPA, participated in a joint procurement to select a vendor to provide microtransit software and technology. The requests for proposals were released in December 2021. We received 9 proposals in January of 22, and an evaluation panel of all the transit operators in PCTPA selected Spare Labs to provide the microtransit software. Spare signed a 3-year contract with Roseville in 2022, and they also signed separate contracts with Placer County Transit to provide microtransit service in Rockland and Lincoln. Spare Labs has been in business for 7 years and currently operates within 100 transportation systems worldwide and 65 in North America. You can see the various cities that they work in, and they're adding them, it seems like, monthly. But Dallas, Ashland, Kansas City, Lincoln, Eden Prairie, Minnesota, Calaveras County, and then Reno, Nevada are all companies that work with Spare. Spare is a global company with offices in Vancouver, Barcelona, Tokyo, and Oslo. Spare provides a complete set of tools that work together to provide the most advanced microtransit solution. What does that mean? This means that Spare provides multiple operator and rider conveniences, such as what you see up there on the screen. There's an administrative panel, which enables Roseville Transit to, among other things, view the locations of each bus. There's a rider app that can be downloaded by passengers, and you can schedule rides, pay for the rides, and monitor the arrival of the ride. There's a driver app that enables the bus operator to see who will be riding, how they're paying, and easy to follow directions to the next stop. And then there's also a rider website that enables passengers to book a ride, pay for a ride, and monitor a ride. So what is Arrow? Arrow is, in a nutshell, on-demand transit in the palm of your hand. Beginning in January, Roseville Transit Arrow replaced Roseville's dial-a-ride and paratransit service. At this point, we're attempting to do away with the phrase dial-a-ride, since very few people dial anymore to book a ride. The photo you see here is one of our cutaway buses. When I say cutaway buses, that's what I'm referencing. These have traditionally been our dial-a-ride buses, and they're now being converted to Arrow buses. We're putting a nice wrap on there, as you can see in that picture. Arrow combines the convenience and flexibility of ride-hailing services such as Uber and Lyft with the capacity and affordability of traditional transit. You get the same Roseville Transit professional drivers, and there's no surge pricing or same-day fares. Arrow fares stay the same no matter when you ride. Although there are multiple ways to schedule a ride on Arrow, the easiest way to do it is to download the app. The app is available as the Go South Placer app at the Apple App Store or Google Play. The app works not just for Roseville, but for Placer County Transit, for Lincoln, and Rockland. Once the passenger downloads the app and enters their profile information, they can schedule a ride. This slide shows the various windows you will see when booking a ride. The first window asks you where you want to go. Second window shows the approximate pickup time. The third window shows the rider that the bus is arriving, and it also allows you to track the bus upon its arrival. And just to note that tracking the bus begins as soon as the driver is on the way to get you. If they're driving around getting someone else before you, you won't be tracking, it won't show up on your app. This screenshot, just a quick one showing the 3 service zones. If you download your app or on your computer, you'll see Roseville, Rockland, and Lincoln as basically your starting point. Using Arrow is meant to be an easy process. Passengers wishing to ride Arrow have multiple options when scheduling a ride. While using the app is the preferred option, we realize not everyone has a smartphone or wants to use it for this purpose. Because of this, passengers can also go online using their computer, or they can call our dispatch like they did prior to the launch of Aero. Once you book your trip, payments can be made through the app using a credit card that you entered into your profile. If you don't have a credit card or prefer not to use it, the passenger has the option of paying with cash. In this case, the bus operator will be notified that the passenger wishes to pay with cash and will request payment upon boarding. If the passenger pays with a credit card, the bus operator will know that as well and will not expect any payment when the passenger boards. Passengers can book a ride up to 2 weeks in advance. The cost to ride Aero is $3.75 for the general public and $2.50 for seniors and disabled. There's a 30-minute pickup window once they set your time, 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after, where you have to be available. And then once scheduled, passengers have to be ready for the Aero within that designated pickup window. Using the app, as I mentioned, passengers can track the location of the bus, and you will receive rider notifications so you know it's on its way. Lastly, this is a pooled service, which means you may be sharing your ride with other passengers, and the bus may do additional stops or two before dropping you off. The Spare technology platform is what manages the pickup and drop-off process to make it as efficient as possible for all passengers. The next two slides are similar to the earlier slide showing what it looks like on your app or computer to request a ride. I just wanted to show a couple more items related to the scheduling your ride, to show how easy it is to use Aero. Once you enter your pickup and drop-off locations, as seen in this slide, the passenger then has a few options that are at the bottom left of this slide. For instance, it asks how many riders. So if it's just you, or if you have more, you can put that in there. Do you have any special needs? Do you have a bike? Do you have a wheelchair, a service dog, things like that? Then there's the payment option, which you can click, credit card or cash. And then the last one is schedule. There's a schedule box there, and that one's kind of important. It gives you the following options. You can leave ASAP, so as soon as the vehicle is available. You can put in a specific time that you want it to pick you up, or you can put in a specific time that you want to arrive at your destination. And that one's important for those that are using it perhaps to go to work or for a doctor's appointment. So there's multiple options as far as pickup times go. Once the option's been chosen, all that's left is to request the ride. You can see on this slide the cost is clearly shown, as is the approximate pickup time. Click on the request ride and you're ready to ride Aero. Similar to Uber and Lyft, when the ride is booked and completed through the app, the passenger can rate the driver and provide comments that only management can see. This helps us see what people think of our service. So in addition to providing an easy ride option for passengers, the next two slides show other important features that we can utilize with the Spare platform. As Roseville's transit agency, staff has a lot of annual reporting that's required on both the state and federal level. Using the Spare platform enables us to use the software to track key performance indicators that will be used for our year-end reports. This slide just shows a sample of the ridership data. We can enter specific dates and track data such as the number of riders, cancellations, boarding per hours, and much more. Then in addition to the riders, we can use the software to track fleet data. This information includes the number of buses used, the vehicles that are used, service hours, revenue hours, and boardings per vehicle, and other key items. Well, we don't have much of a serving size at this point since we began in late January. The following three slides just quickly show some of the data that we've been able to pull since the January 27th launch. As of May 1st, you can see there that combined Roseville, Lincoln, and Rockland, we've had over 8,300 rides. Breaking this down a little bit more, you can see that over 3,500 of them were from Roseville. And then the next one's just showing I mentioned that the service is a pooled service. And since the launch, you can see that 51% of the rides were pooled. So that means if you ride, you have about a 50% chance of riding by yourself or with others. But based on the data we've reviewed to date, ridership has been fairly steady. However, we do expect it to grow in the coming months as the word gets out and people start getting a little more comfortable with this new service. So at this point, I hope I've done a good job of showing how easy it is to use Aero and trying the Go South Placer app to schedule a ride. While we're excited about the introduction of microtransit to Roseville and its future within the city, there are a few challenges that we continue to work to resolve that are worth mentioning tonight. Driver shortage. One key challenge right now is our driver shortages. This is a challenge facing transit operators throughout the country. Driver shortages impact the number of vehicles that we can have running Arrow at one time. If demand for the service increases significantly, we may not have the resources to meet this demand. Our transit operator, MV Transit, is working hard behind the scenes to get new operators trained, but it continues to be a challenge to not only get the new operators, but to retain existing ones as well. And then along with that, our Arrow routes are currently being serviced with our existing dial ride buses, as I mentioned earlier. The majority of these vehicles were purchased in 2009 and have exceeded their useful lives. Because of this, we're seeing many of these vehicles having to go to the shop a little more frequently for servicing, and they're not available for service. Staff received a federal grant last year to replace these vehicles with electric vehicles. However, the new vehicles aren't expected until at least 2024. Until then, we have taken some internal steps to allow for some newer ADA-compatible minivans to help fill the gap until we can get some newer vehicles here in Roseville. So related to that is the passenger wait times. The above two issues can result in longer wait times than we would like to see. And we do have some real-life examples. When we launched, a group of us used the service to go to lunch. And the trip there was fine. It went nicely. Just then when we rescheduled our return trip, it was a 2-hour wait. So that makes it tough when you're trying to do lunch, or, if you can't be there too long. So, and this is just part of the stuff we're working on now. I mean, as we've more of this that we get under our belt, hopefully we can, reduce these wait times. But we've also had a couple people say that they tried to reserve a ride from West Roseville and got a no vehicles available notice. And that's also something that, we've got to work on, but it just comes down to having the sufficient amount of vehicles and drivers to operate the service. And we're still trying to find that happy medium as far as, having that available without people sitting around for too long. So it's something we are working on, but I just wanted you to know that there are some challenges that we are having that we hope to get worked out here in the near future. There are just a couple other points. The microtransit service, now that it's offered anywhere within the city of Roseville, one question we're going to be addressing is how this will impact our existing fixed route service and how that ultimately impacts how we spend our transit funds. And as discussed earlier, this will be part of our COA analysis. We'll be looking at that over the next 12 to 18 months. Additionally, with SPARE, it's considered a 3-year pilot program, so we can see how microtransit performs within our city. And so combining the COA and the pilot program, we'll attempt to find a proper balance between the two services so that microtransit could be complementary in nature and not competitive. So the last thing I wanted to mention has to do with the vehicles. As I referenced, the current buses used for Arrow are scheduled to be replaced. The federal grant to replace the vehicles specifically called for the same style of 28-foot paratransit cutaway buses that are currently being used. However, through research and discussions with other transit agencies using microtransit, staff believes that switching from these small buses to electric vans to run Arrow is more advantageous to the city. The vans have lower costs. The perception from the users is more positive compared to a paratransit bus. And the vehicles can access more parts to the city that a bus wouldn't be able to get to. So because of this, staff is working with the Federal Transit Administration to change the grant to allow for the purchase of vans instead of small buses. And assuming we are successful with that request, we expect to see more electric vans in the future running this service. And this is just a rendering of what the vans would look like once they're out and running. So this concludes my report. However, before I end the report, I wanted to share a quick 30-second video that our communications team developed recently that talks about Arrow.
Try Roseville Transit Aero, on-demand transit in the palm of your hands. Formerly known as Dial-A-Ride, Aero offers affordable convenience, professional drivers, and no-surge pricing or same-day fares. Anyone can ride Aero throughout Roseville for as little as $2.50 each way. Regional connections are available. Book your trip by using the Go South Placer mobile app, your browser, or call 916-745-7560.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Schofield. I think you did a terrific job with the pros and the cons of the aero buses and potentially the vans. But with that said, was there any clarifying questions for staff? This is clarifying. We'll get a chance to make our comments. So looks like there is one from Commissioner Pell.
Yeah, thank you. My question was just, if the grant revision gets approved for the electric vans, would you expect a shorter lead time with the electric vans versus larger electric buses?
Yes, that would be our hope. Not to go into too much detail, but we're having trouble getting the cutaway electric buses because they don't have the proper federal safety approval. So we've been on hold with those, whereas the vans seem a little further along and we could get a quicker turnaround time.
Great. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Any other clarifying questions before we open up to public comment?
If you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
I jotted down a few things. First of all, I think this is a really, really great idea for the city. And I think everything's kind of moving in this direction, and it makes a lot of sense. But as you were presenting, I kind of jotted down a few things here. I thought about how I would, if I used this myself, and the first thing I thought was, well, is there some sort of guarantee or accuracy to when it's going to get me to my destination? Because I think everybody cares about when they're going to get where they're going to go, not when they have to leave, right?
Yeah.
How accurate is that? And is there some sort of guarantee, like you're going to get me at this place within this time window?
Well, I think it would go back to when you reserve the ride, you can click, pick me up ASAP, or I want to be picked up by this time, or I want to arrive by this time.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the closest you could get with a guarantee. You would click that third one and say, I need to arrive at my destination by this point. Having said that, we do have challenges. It's not foolproof, and we're still working on it, but.
Certainly, and the people that are providing the app service are much smarter than I am, I'm sure. But what I thought is, like, you're sitting on the bus, and it's a ride share. So you think you're going to get to your destination, oh, we're 20 minutes away, but then 4 people order a ride that's in your route on the way, and now suddenly we have to pick 4 more people up before I get to go where I want to go. And how does that affect my ride and the timeliness of me getting where I'm going to go? And maybe that's only a problem once it gets popular, and it's not a problem now, but that's what popped into my head when I thought about it, and I'm sure there's somebody that creates the app that the app service that Roseville chose, that somehow integrates that and thinks about it.
Yes.
But maybe not. That's just a thought I had. And then the other question I had was, because Lincoln and Rockland are also part of the same app and the same service, can you do inter-city travel?
Not at this time. That's a very good question, and one we're working on. But right now, if you wanted to go to, say, from Roseville to Rockland, you would schedule a ride Roseville to the Galleria, and then you'd schedule a second ride from the Galleria to Rockland. So you could use the same app, or you could call the same number, that promotes it. But at this point, there's no one ride going through. It's just something we're working on.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Roberts. Does anybody else have any clarifying questions? Mr. Probst?
Thank you. I had a great presentation. Really appreciate what you're doing. One question I had about the retention issue with drivers, I definitely can relate because at Caltrans, we train heavy equipment operators and folks to do all kinds of wonderful things, and then as soon as they're certified, they go work somewhere else. So what industries are folks leaving for? Any industries that you know about? Is there any wage gap analysis of maybe would that help, or retention bonuses? Because I know it's really frustrating to train people and you get them in there and then they go. Kind of any more info about that issue, or what options we could have, because you do need folks to drive these vehicles.
Yeah, and we have looked at that, and I know this gentleman over here at some point could go into a lot of detail. That's Rich Frost from MV Transit. But we did look at there was a wage discrepancy we thought that would help out, and MV stepped up and did pay increases, and I think that's helping, and I've heard we're turning the corner, but at the end of the day, they just have a lot of options. I mean, they can leave one transit agency and go to another, and there's other non-transit jobs. There's just so much available out there, and it's all pretty competitively priced. So, I mean, sometimes you feel like if you have a bad day that they'll just go somewhere else.
Thank you.
Is there any other clarifying questions?
I just had one question, please.
Ms. Festerson, please.
What time can you start getting a ride, and what time do you stop giving rides?
It's a good question. I think it's 6 a.m. to 8?
Yeah, it'd be 5:30 to 10.
5:30 to 10.
Okay,
There you
great.
go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
That's a great question. Yeah. I figured you might say 2 a.m. Was there any other clarifying questions at this time? Being none, we'll open it up to public comment. Would any of you folks from the public like to comment on this item? Anyone? Oh, we do. Please come on up, and I'm prompted to remind you to please fill out one of the green speaker cards before you leave.
Wonderful, thank you.
State your name for the public.
Yeah, my name is Hillary Macias. I was not planning to speak, but I have an experience with learning about the Arrow app where I saw it advertised on the website. And so it said, get the app. So I went to the app store and I typed in Arrow and I didn't find anything. And so that discouraged me. And so I just kind of forgot about it for a while. And so tonight, learning more about it and going to the website, I saw that you have to go search for the Go
South Placer.
Yeah, Go South Placer. So maybe just a comment with the branding and marketing of it, maybe connect those two a little bit more, where when it says Arrow, you also have like the name of the app itself of how they would find that in the App Store. So that's just my personal experience. Thank you so much for your time.
Were you from Roseville Leadership as well?
No.
Oh, I was going to say, you two
No,
should get extra
just
credit.
interested in wanting to learn. So, yeah,
Questions.
thank you.
Great job. Okay. And if there's no one else from the public comment, I will close public comment and start over to my left with our Youth Commissioner. Ms. Mondel, did you have any further questions or comments on this item?
On this time.
Okay. Mr. Probst? Commissioner Goff?
Yep, just a few. So who are the drivers employed by? The city or by a company?
They're employed by MV Transit, so they're under contract with the city of Roseville to provide day-to-day operations.
Okay. So, yeah, so it's a vendor essentially through the city? Okay. So if there was an issue with one of the drivers, who would they contact? Let's say there was some kind of misbehavior or something like that. Would they contact the city?
Yeah, I mean, they usually would go through the city if
the
there's
office,
an issue,
okay.
and then we would deal directly with the general manager, Rich Frost, right over there.
Right. Okay, and IT issues, let's say someone can't bring up the app, or so there's some payment issues or anything like that. Is that going to be readily apparent to the users on who to contact? Is a phone number or something like that?
I mean, they can work with us, and we have a close relationship, obviously, with Spare, but Roseville can be the point of contact.
Okay, and so 375, excluding seniors and disabled and so on, so 375 anywhere in the city?
Correct.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, and so this started in January. Is there any kind of feeling or look at who the riders are so far?
No, I don't.
Graphics
I
or
mean,
anything?
yeah, I don't know if we have a profile on the types of riders. but-
Anybody going to schools, like going to high schools or anything like that, or?
No, I don't. I mean, we don't. Yeah, I don't think we have a lot of that information.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we have some data on Sierra College riders, things like that, because we can track them using their passes, but that's more on fixed route and not on microtransit.
So you don't, so the people from Roseville wouldn't be able to go to Sierra College yet on this?
Right.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And then, let's see, and then you already indicated there was going to be some collaboration related to some of the data sharing regarding the ATP COA and who the folks are or where the routes pick up and drop off is, and that's going to help with some of the bus routes. Is that what we're hoping on?
Yeah, I think you could make that connection. I mean, yeah, we'd have to look into that. Yeah, if you find a lot of people going to one place, then maybe that's where we could provide more fixed route service.
Okay.
But yeah, that's definitely something we would look into as
Okay,
part
yeah.
of the COA.
That kind of came to my mind when you were talking about some of the data sharing.
Yeah.
Like maybe we could figure out, what's the priority? Are we looking more towards microtransit? Or are we looking more towards fixed routes? What's better for, service for the public and also operating costs and so on. So yeah, some of the data from the microtransit might provide some of that as you were talking about. I think that's it. So appreciate the presentation. Very good. Thank you.
Good questions. Commissioner Pell?
Not this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Festerson?
I thank you for the presentation. It was great. No questions.
Commissioner Roberts?
Nothing else. Thank you.
And, they had terrific questions, and they really left me pretty much with nothing else to ask but to commend you. But well done. This is a very sharp group of individuals, and I'm honored to sit on it. And you've certainly really given us some good alternate transportation measures with the trail continuity and the bus shuttle service. So anybody who doesn't have good excuses, I mean, $250 for a senior to get anywhere around town. I don't like the 2-hour wait, though. You
Yeah,
know?
well, we're working on that. That was just an example, a real-life example.
Did the pros and cons, and so with that, this is not an action item, so we will move on to item number 7, and that is staff and commission reports, and that goes back to staff, and I was hoping we'd get Mr. Shaitowski up here to give a commission on things going on in transportation, or maybe Mr. Schofield has some more items.
Yeah, I just had one. You all had little gift baskets there. We wanted to just remind people that Saturday, June 3rd is our annual Bike Fest, 30th anniversary of our Bike Fest. So just wanted to promote that. And if you have a chance and you want to come down and be part of the festivities, please do so.
Awesome. Is there anything else from staff?
I hadn't planned on it, but I can give you a short update on some of the key projects we're working on. We've got obviously the roundabout going on at All America City at Washington. That should be completed later this year. So right now they're doing phase 1, the portion you saw with the concrete. They'll have to swap traffic over and then rip out the road on the other side and put in the rest of the roundabout. So that's on schedule. It's looking good. Pleasant Grove widening between Foothills Boulevard and Wood Creek Oaks Boulevard, widening the 4-lane road, 2 lanes in each direction, to 3 lanes in each direction, so 6 lanes total. Will actually go to construction hopefully by August. And so we'll be widening that road to the median. And then Roseville Parkway Extension. We're getting close on acquiring the final piece of property we need to bid that project. The plans are all approved. We're still hopeful to be able to bid that thing this summer and start construction. It'll be completed next year. That is extending Roseville Parkway from Washington Boulevard over the railroad tracks to Foothill Boulevard. It includes a nice multi-use trail on the bridge separated by a barrier so people can actually get over the railroad tracks. So it'll be our first multi-use trail crossing of the UP railroad tracks in Roseville. So we're excited about that. We also have funding identified to begin the design and environmental work on Blue Oaks widening. We're going to be adding a second bridge structure over the railroad tracks and Industrial Boulevard in between Washington and Foothill. So it'll be, what will that be? That would be, is it 7 lanes? Might be 7 lanes over the railroad tracks. And we'll also at that time be adding a 4th westbound lane on Blue Oaks between Foothill and Wood Creek Oaks to complete that section of roadway to help with vehicles getting out to the west and back in Roseville. So that design should start this fall. It will be a 2 to 3 year process to get through the design and environmental on that project, but we're hoping to have all the funding in place and be ready to go to construction in 2026. So we got some exciting major projects moving forward. I think it's probably the highlights.
That was terrific. Sorry to put you on the spot, but you really shot from the hip well on that one. So, commissioners, we'll go from left to right. Our Youth Commissioner Mondel, did you have any comments for?
Not at this time, but I thank you for all the presentations. They were very informative.
Commissioner Probst?
No, thank you for your presentations.
Commissioner Groff?
Two things. First of all, fantastic presentations, and we appreciate the update as well, even though I was on the fly. Very, very nice. But also, I'd like to thank my cohorts. I was unable to make it to the last meeting. Appreciated Ed for reading my my letter, and thank you for the selection for vice chairman. Appreciate that.
You bet. Commissioner Pell?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Radford. Appreciate the updates. They were really informative. Looking forward to what the next couple of years have to come. Two things. May is Bike Month, so go ride your bike somewhere. It's a great place to go ride your bike. And also, I think last time I had mentioned Miners Ravine Trail had some trail damage from the emergency construction work. Looks like that's getting repaired now. So thank you to the city for really maintaining our trails and keeping them up to the high standards that we have in Roseville. So thank you very much.
Okay, Commissioner Festerson.
I'm just pleased about the bike trail information that you gave us tonight. Look forward to more information about that. And I'm anxious to hear about how we're going to get from Roseville to Sacramento someday on a trail.
On trail.
Absolutely.
So that's just, way out there, just kind of throwing it out there. But thank you for all the information, and I'll see everyone at the Bike Fest.
Right on. Commissioner Roberts.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also thank staff, and I don't know if this is what Commissioner Pell was talking about, but if you guys saw behind Sogstead Park, the Royer Park Sogstead Trail, the last spring storm, the one that just wouldn't stop, we just about lost all the trail. There was a 60-inch sewer line that went through there, and it was like high-stakes poker we were playing there, and the staff and the council took quick item. They got a local contractor there. They brought in like 1,500 tons of riprap. They repaired it, saved the day. They worked pretty much around the clock, and they just repaved it last week, and it's better than ever. And I'm excited to ride my bike on that one this month. So, yeah, well done, guys. Everybody teamed together, and yeah, that was a close call. I was out there watching it kind of unfold. So with that said, agenda item number 8 is adjournment, and so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion?
Seconded.
Second? Well, that's a wrap, folks. So we'll see you at the next scheduled transportation meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.